I have some crystal contacts, some new crystal contacts I want to share with you today. I'm also going to attempt to ask, no, others have asked. I'm going to attempt to answer a few questions for you to the best of my ability and my computer's ability. I'm having some difficulties today with the computer, so we'll see how far we get with this. We'll start out with Isa. Okay, Isa is the main crystal I'm working with for the crystal contacts. The crystal transmissions, as I will often call them. Isa is a citrine quartz crystal. She's in a teardrop shape. Quartz crystal is six-sided. If I turn her upside down here, you can maybe see the six sides. So on the bottom, and of course, six sides along her faces. Okay, she works really great with me. You can see she's just smaller than my hand. She's very easy for me to maneuver in my hand when I'm doing the captures, and she's just like glue. She just fits in there like a glove. Okay, so for me, this size and this style and this shape of crystal works really well for this work. However, you can use a small crystal, a much larger crystal. The size and shape of the crystal, even you can see she's full of inclusions. I mean, she's not super clear, although she has clarity in areas. She has lots of inclusions in others, and she features, as this question often gets asked, a large rainbow cluster right at her center, which is where a lot of the color in the frames comes from. First question, how do you capture the images? What is the process? Okay, so for me, the biggest part of the process is listening for the call. This may sound odd to you, but I don't just always pick up the crystal and just start working. Often, in fact, I just got off of a long hiatus from the crystal. I hadn't picked her up in ages, months and months and months, long time, could have even been a year. I don't even remember. But I will hear the call. So when someone is calling me through this crystal, I can feel it. I will start to have the idea to pick up the crystal, that I need to start picking up the crystal, that I need to start working with the crystal. It'll just keep pushing itself more and more forward. And this is a very large part of my process. And once I do pick up the crystal, the first part of my process is to connect with Isa, to connect with the crystal itself. Okay, and so I may just sit with my eyes closed, maybe do a short meditation, maybe do a breathing pattern. I'm definitely going to do something to help shift my brainwave patterns. Okay, I want to not only shift my brainwave patterns wholly out of beta, I want to shift my brainwave patterns into the frequency match of the being that is calling. Okay, so after I connect with Isa, I'm going to just sort of connect inwardly with my own self. I'm just going to dive into the center of myself, and I'm going to start feeling for the energy that I feel coming through, and I'm going to energetically match that energy. As I move through this process, my brainwave patterns are already shifting. I don't want to shift them too far because I don't want to go out of body. I want to be fully here and able to go into the crystal with the camera and all of that kind of stuff. So often this is going to take me into a deep alpha. And as I begin working with the crystal, it's going to take me into the theta waves. And being able to function in the theta waves is not something that's easy. They, as you may know, if you go out of body yourself, are very intoxicating. And they will pull you in. And if you are able to go out of body and enjoy going out of body like myself, it's really challenging to resist the lure to shift wholly in there and away from here. So breathing patterns work. A lot of things, you may need to employ some things to keep you focused in the reality and on what you're attempting to do here, which is bring through a wave from another point in time to your wave here in this point in time through the mean of the crystal. Fascinating process, hard to wrap your mind around. I know that this is actually taking place, but let me say this. If you can do it with this, you can do it with this. It's no more mind-blowing, really. I mean, this is just nuts and bolts. If there's anything that's mind-blowing, it's this. Really sort of less mind-blowing that something as intelligent as the crystal itself is able to be used solely as the mean of communication. Okay, so I'm going to hear the call. I'm going to connect with the crystal. I'm going to connect with myself. Okay, I'm going to become an energetic frequency match to the caller. In this process, my brainwave patterns are going to shift. So I'm consciously moving through this process. The process really is a process of consciously shifting my brainwave patterns to be a match again to the caller. And then I am going to sit myself down where I want to do the work. I'm going to sit myself sideways to my light source. I prefer to use the sun. So I want the light source to come in on me sideways. So I want the window or whatever it is that's going to be bringing the light to be on my right and or my left. Okay, I don't want to face the light source. I don't want to face away from the light source. I want it to come in sideways to me. This is very important. I can't tell you all of the details why this is so important. I just know that it is from having done this for so long now. Okay, the majority of the color that I'm going to be bringing through in my images, again, is going to come through the rainbow pattern at Isa's heart. However, I might want there to be additional colors for multiple reasons. And so I'm going to bring those colors into my vicinity before I sit down to go to work. This may be other colorful crystals. This may be color swabs of material. This may be a colorful pillow like the one that I have behind me. It could be any number of things. It could even be the clothing that I have on my own body. Okay, sometimes I'm going to sit Isa down and I'm going to just maneuver the camera. Sometimes I'm going to pick her up and I will maneuver Isa and keep my camera focused. Sometimes I lay Isa down on parts of my body. Sometimes Isa will be kept still. Sometimes I'm going to oscillate her slightly by doing different things. Okay, so all of this is a part of the process. It's pretty easy once you sit yourself down to do it. The process of opening a window, I will mention right here now, is a process of triangulation. So if I'm wanting to go out beyond the body of this crystal itself, I am going to pick a point, and it's going to be a triangulated point. This face, and this face meet right here at this point. And I'm going to take the camera, or just my gaze, if I'm doing it just for myself, right into the point in this crystal. And windows are going to start to open. Fascinating, because I can actually see the windows open. And you can see the light change as you go in. And you may... A part of this process is also being able to visually recognize patterns as something. So this is not a lot different than the ESETI people out there with the big listening apparatuses for anybody perhaps sending us messages through space. All right, when you're when you're tuning a dial on a radio, you have to get just the right space to get the frequency to come in. And this takes great skill when you're talking about receiving messages from a long, long ways away. And you also have to be able to audibly recognize sounds and frequencies, and especially those that are different than normal, something that mean something. And the same could be said when I'm going visually into Isa, into the crystals. And when you are going visually into the crystals, you need to be able to recognize patterns as something and then focus your attention into them. Focusing your attention in, going in until you get there, is something that takes time and patience, but does come for those who practice. Aren't you just taking pictures of the inside of the crystal? Why do you say the images are transmissions? Okay, so not all of the images are transmissions, but a great majority of them are transmissions. I've already started going into this a bit. Let me go into this a little bit further and mention that there are 3 types of captures specifically that I have identified as being somewhat distinct from one another. And the capture could be one or another of these, or a combination of some or all of them. But the first one is the triangulation process of opening a window in the crystal, which we've already gone into, to go out beyond the body of the crystal itself. The next way transmissions come through is through the rays of the sun, through the light rays, carrier waves. The light waves, the sunbeams are carrier waves, and they can carry information, carry data that can be processed through the crystal and sent to me, processed through the crystal, and received here on my end. Fascinating, right? So that's a second way. And those 2 ways are definitely transmissions. However, there's an elemental component also. And I can go into this crystal, into the crystal itself, into the body of this crystal, into the information it physically holds. That's inside there physically right now. And that's going to be going into the elemental realm. Okay, and the elemental realm, I can read this rock. There is a story in this stone, and I can capture those as well. Now that's going to be the elemental realm, the elemental kingdom in here, cooperating with me to tell these stories so that I can read them to you. And so in a sense, in that way, they could be said to be transmissions too, because they're transmissions from the elemental realm. But in a lesser sense, also, it's the story of this stone and the information it holds. And so this is why I say they are transmissions. It's an experience. It's not just a visual. It's an experience when this happens. You ever get that sensation in you where you sort of know that somebody's looking at you? You don't see them, they're behind you. You just get that sensation. It's an experience, and it's something like that, although more beautiful and more phenomenal and not creepy in any way. All right, so there's a lot of reasons that I say they're transmissions. The last way I will just mention is many of these beings I actually meet. I am, and I meet in this form. I meet those forms in out-of-body experience. So this is also another mean for me to be aware that they are transmissions, as well as the fact that I'm not just a visual channel, I'm a vocal channel as well. So I'm very inwardly connected, and I am communicating with these beings from the withinness of my being. The process and the work that we're doing with the crystal is so that we can take what is an invisible experience within myself and visibly show you. People in physical space often want something, some physical proof, some physical mean to understand what it is you're saying, and this is just something that we're doing to help that along. Is there any importance to the time of day or type of light? Excellent question. Time of day. Okay. Although you can do this work at any time of day with any type of light, with any crystal, small or large, I have noticed that the windows of sunrise and sunset bring through extraordinary experience, bring through extraordinary formations. And so I will say, in this sense, yes, sunrise, sunset, the hour into on both sides of both of these times of day. These are portals, as we know, which is probably why they are so much more powerful than other moments or other portals within the day. These are huge portals. So especially when you're beginning, if you want to see some result, so that you can get the encouragement to keep doing this, yes, try the half hour on either side of sunrise, and same thing with sunset. With the sunset, you can use the sun itself, but you can also use indoor lightings and things like this. Again, make sure you are sideways to the light source coming in, and that you're going to triangulate. Because if you go into a line such as here, where there's only two sides, it's a different type of a window, which I'm not going to go into because all of the details would make this video way too long. But you're going to want to triangulate. So find a point that is a triangulated point, sunrise and or sunset, and see what happens. Next question. Do I alter the frames in any way? This is an excellent question. So when I don't share everything that comes through the crystal. Most of the frames that come through are going to be readable to only me, and somebody else that has the visual capacity that similar to what I do. But the ones that I share with everybody, yes, I'm going to process these. And so sometimes the being is going to be in the upper right corner, and so I'm going to crop the photo, to frame him well. I deepen and lighten shadows. I sharpen the images. I often reduce a bit of the color. I brighten them. I don't alter the picture in any other way. Okay. Recently, I've been having the idea, I sometimes can only get one eye, and to help you see, I may add the other eye. I've only done this, on thousands of pictures. I've done this on 2. So that'll tell you how often I do it. So almost never do I alter the picture in any other way, other than to, again, brighten it, sharpen it up a bit, and perhaps crop it. Next question. Who are the beings who come through? The great bulk of the beings who come through are my own template. My own, I have a variety of clusters that are associated with this lifetime, and those clusters come through. My higher fractal consciousness comes through. Creator beings come through. Why do they come through? They come through because that creator being is me in that point in place and time, if it could be said that way. So mostly who comes through is me. The multi-dimensional components of me. However, I'm doing reads for people, and when I'm doing the reads, again, most of what is going to come forward are the beings within my own template who are going to reply to the query. Mostly we're just going in and showing people, answering some portion of a question as to who their own higher fractal consciousness is, and they will put through concepts that I'm able to see. Sometimes they're very visually present in the frame, and then sometimes it's a feeling, it's an intuition. I get the visual from the inside more than in the frame, although it's there not in a way that's really visible to anybody save myself and maybe a few others. So mostly who comes through? I come through. And many different forms and frames and energies and delight, great delight. This is an inquiry about the portraits, the ET portraits that I do, and what I call the main and its associates. So I will just go over this briefly. This person just felt I should put this in here. When I am doing a portrait for one of the crystal contacts, portrait again is just going to be a shoulders and head shot of the being, and they will occupy usually somewhere around the center and the largest part of the frame, and that is the main being who is transmitting through. However, this being will be associated with many other beings who also can be seen in the frames. They are almost always connected by an eye. There is no space between the beings, and so this is going to be like sacred geometry in the Vesica Pisces, where you have the two circles and they overlap, and that overlap will be an eye of one being and its eye, and then you're going to have another circle where that eye is going to overlap with the next being. So everybody is connected by an eye. And there can be so many. I think the most I've seen in one image is just over 100. So along with the main being transmitted through, who you always want to connect with because they're the ones that are really coming through to connect with you, they're showing you all of their many other counterparts and lifetimes and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the main who's coming through with the information. Just one quick suggestion before moving on about the portraits. It would be my recommendation to not always have your sight focused on a portrait style photo. These are very rare, and the thousands of captures I've had over the years, 50 or 60 of them are in this portrait style. The majority of the frames are not going to be as pretty and well, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Let me show you what the majority of the photos are going to look like. And before I do, let me just say that these are almost more magical than the portraits. Very powerful. Next question. What is the connection between the brain waves, the patterns, and the actual frames? This is a really good question. Let me take a moment here to see what I would say about that. So each of the brain waves and the frequencies within each of the major brain waves, beta wave, alpha wave, theta wave, delta wave, gamma wave, etc., has its own visual and visible spectrum. Okay, so when we're in the beta brainwave, we're principally seeing our 3D physical reality and only our Earth-like 3D physical reality, not 3D physical reality anywhere else. So it's a lockdown sort of wave, which isolates you in a particular point of focus so that you can have a particular experience. And other elements of what exists right here while you're right here in this wave doesn't get through to you. Okay, and so when we shift into the alpha wave, this is a whole nother frequency pattern, a whole nother frequency wave. And there's data, there's information in this wave that isn't in the beta wave. And so you can see that as you shift your brainwave patterns into these other waves, this additional information is going to come through. And as it comes through to you, it can be focused through the crystal and captured with the camera for others to see. But it first requires you seeing it. Okay, and what's really happening is you're transferring the contents of what's in your own awareness, what's in your own visual field through the crystal and onto the camera. Okay, and so that's the connection. Now, there's a lot more to this. I could probably do a video a couple hours long if we wanted to just focus on that alone. A lot's coming in, but right now, let me just say this. Each frequency pattern, each frequency wave has its own set of information. Okay, that information again can be transferred from your consciousness through the mean of the crystal into your frames, into your captures, into what you get on the camera. This is just a fun fact. The frames are designed to help you shift. And so, for those of you who are wanting to go out of body, wanting to shift your brainwave patterns, your brainwave cycles, your waves into other worlds, the frames that I'm putting through to you can be very helpful with this. They are the visual equivalent of their audio counterparts, isochronic tones, binaural beats, this type of idea. It's not just the being who's presenting in the frame. It is the frequency wave of that being. It is the frequency waves that I am housing, emitting as I am getting the capture. And so all of those frequency waves are in there. Where these beings are is in there. Okay? And so by taking your gaze into the frames, softening your gaze, just letting your gaze drift and float. Okay? Looking for those patterns that tell you that something's there, letting that capture your attention, expanding that attention out, focusing it in more closely. All of these things will create that alteration in your own structure and assist you to shift. Next question is about how I arrived at this work, what it is, and what I'm doing. Well, how I arrived at the work. I arrived at the work in my 44th year, after 44 years of spiritual disciplines and a somewhat seriously focused spiritual seeking life. The practice of Atma Vichara is where I stood in this spiritual discipline, is the question, who am I? In my 44th year, in the summer of 2009, this is when I had my conscious awakening, when I was activated to awaken and underwent a top-down Kundalini awakening type process. Through this process, I was assisted in getting out of body, we'll say, near nightly, near daily for 4 years. I was experiencing beyond the physical. Some of this was the Kundalini energies and the loud ringing in the ears and the constant vibration through my form. Some of this was my range of vision expanding beyond what it was already expanded to, which exceeded our 3D Earth life field and frame. So additional forms of light began coming in. I could see portals and all kinds of things that I won't go into. I often got stopped on a dime in 360 vision where I would be taken very fast around the planet. A bunch of things like this during the day. At night, the K energies would come. It was very painful for quite some time. While things were being cleared, and through this process again was shown the out-of-body states and additional states of consciousness, as I call them. and taken into additional consciousness space, out into galactic space, into the galactic reality. And I had so much fun with this. I did hit a point where I could vacate, and I decided it would be more fun to come back and share this with everyone. I saw a lot of possibility in this, and that's what I'm doing. I'm entering that possibility for a great many more of us and extending my own possibility. There's much more I can do in this work. It can pattern out to be a great deal more than what it is now. Some of you have heard me mention this before. Let's see if I can state this cohesively. I am a visual channel. I can bring through the visual component. I'm a vocal channel as well, but I'm having a challenging time with that to the extent that I want to bring it to, let's say. But with the visual component, not always will we necessarily require the crystal to show you the contacts that are occurring currently on the planet, mine and others. I receive information that I am a type of being who can shift in my own molecular makeup and visually bring through my own physicality, the forms of others who would like to come through to speak to consensus. And so if that seems out there to you, it seems out there to me also, and as such, so much fun. Somehow it's always been easier for me to focus myself into things that are more challenging than things that are more simple, things that have never been done rather than things that have already been done. I'm not sure why. I do tend to be a bit of a push things to the absolute limit type of person, and I'm sure this is a part of my being that just requires some expression and has the possibility, potentiality, great potentiality to hear in this life. So that's what we're doing.